So you just got your airsoft gun and the first thing you want to do is rip it open. But what should you do? Well, one of the options is to change it from an electric gun into an HPA gun. What is an HPA gun? Make sure you watch this video where we explain everything you need to make your gun shoot really, really quick with high pressure air. All right, so first, what is HPA? Well, HPA is taking your existing airsoft gun, replacing the gearbox either with one of these engines like a fusion engine, or taking the main cylinder components out and replacing it with one of these drop-in kits such as a Kythera F2 or jack. So what you're doing is taking away that compression piece of the gearbox and replacing it with a high pressure air. So you're removing the motor, you're removing the gear, you're removing the cylinder, all the guts of an airsoft gun to replace it with a high pressure air engine. So now that you know what HPA is, what are the 4 components that you need to make your gun HPA? Well, the first is you need a gun. The second, you're gonna need an engine. So we have 3 engines positioned right here. These engines include the Polarstar Fusion engine, the Polarstar Kythera, and the Polarstar F2. Not pictured here are companies called Redline, there's Wolverine, and some other HPA engines, but Polarstar has been, for the longest time, really the main producer of HPA engines. And each of these engines has different cost, but also has different features. Well, the most inexpensive is going to be the Polarstar jack. It has some basic features. It has 1 solenoid. Why does that matter? Well, you get a little bit less adjustability than some of these others. Then you have like the Polarstar F2, which is a sibling of the Polarstar Fusion engine. The Polarstar Fusion engine is the king of the crop. It's the end all be all. It's the original pretty much HPA engine for airsoft. It's the most expensive, it has the most adjustability, and why people would choose that over, let's say, one of these cylinder kits is this is hypothetically a drop-in kit. But with that, you're gonna pay a lot more, where these are in the $500 range, where a Polarstar jack is about $300. So you're gonna wanna assess how much do you wanna spend on your engine, because that's gonna be the most expensive component of your HPA build. Now, one of the ones I didn't mention was the Polarstar Kythera. There's also the Redline N7. These are for people that only want to shoot semi-automatic, and these engines shoot really efficiently in semi-auto, but you cannot shoot full automatic at all with those 2 engines. The next thing that you're going to get is a regulator. So this one is by Redline, and a regulator is going to include usually a hose. So the regulator is going to take the tank and take it down to a manageable pressure so that you can run it in your airsoft gun. A normal tank puts out 700, 800 PSI. These things knock it down to about 60 to 80 PSI. You're also going to get a hose because you need a hose to connect to your engine. Now that we talked about that, the last component is going to actually be your tank. Maybe we should have done this the other way, but it's okay. Tank. There's 2 different types of tanks. There is a aluminum tank, and then there is carbon fiber. Now, the main difference between these is that aluminum tanks hold 3,000 PSI, whereas carbon fiber hold 4,500 PSI. What does that mean in layman's terms? Well, that means you're gonna get more shots out of a carbon fiber tank than you're gonna get out of an aluminum tank. The other thing with the carbon fiber, it's gonna be a lot lighter than the aluminum, and they also make larger carbon fiber tanks, meaning that larger air volume, so that the bigger the tank, the more shots that you get, the higher the pressure, the more shots that you'll get. So you see people that want to run a whole lot without having to refill use carbon fiber tanks. Now, aluminum tanks are only 50 bucks. Carbon fiber tanks start at about 160 and go all the way up to 230 because there's different types of carbon fiber tanks. So that's mainly the one reason why people just start out with an aluminum tank and then work their way up to a carbon fiber tank. However, some people just start out with the carbon fiber tank because it's the best kind of tank out there. Airsoft guns use high pressure air. These use high pressure air and not CO2. So if you ever see anybody with a CO2 tank, CO2 tanks will not work with HPA guns. All right, so now that you've seen all the components of what goes into HPA in your rifle, now how much does it cost? Well, a decent basic setup that we recommend, you can go a little bit cheaper, but we recommend is one of these Redline regs at $150, an aluminum tank about $50, so you're in at about $200 right there. The third thing would be either a Polar Star Jack or a Polar Star F2. Polar Star Jack is going to run about $315, where the F2 is going to run towards that $400. Mainly with the F2, you get a lot more adjustability and things like that. If you want to go with a jack, a red line reg and line, and a tank, then you're going to be right around that $500, $515 mark. One of the things that a lot of these guns don't include that you add, it's only a $5 or $6 expense, is a battery, because most of these outside of the mechanical Kythera run a little battery to power this little FCU up. Why it needs to power this FCU up is because it allows you to change a bunch of different settings and allows the little solenoid to create the air. This is going to be your best friend, because this is going to be how you make all your adjustments to your engines that actually use an FCU. Now, why should you change your airsoft gun into an HPA gun? Well, first of all, it's cool, so people do it. Secondly, it lightens the gun up quite a bit, so you don't have all those metal pieces, gears, motors, everything like that. It allows you to adjust your rate of fire, allows you to get a little bit more, well, actually a lot better performance when it comes to distance, because you're getting consistent air volume with HPA. And that's why you see a lot of these people that are in the like Speed QB soft or fast-paced, or even just looking for air efficiency in their game, use HPA, because it's a more efficient engine and the amount of customability or tunability on the fly is just second to none, where it would take a lot more effort than a highly built airsoft AEG. So the other question is, can I do it myself? Well, the great thing here at Mir Tactical is that we have a full tech service that we can do this for you at a reasonable cost. Yes, you can do that. You can do this yourself, but you know, every airsoft gun is a little bit different. Some airsoft brands are a little easier to work with than other brands. So if you're working like with this VFC Avalon, very simple to use, very simple to put in. But if you're working on like an APS gearbox or anything that's a little bit different, like with the electric blowback system, that may be a little more tough, and we recommend expert installation for situations like that. But we recommend having us here at Mir Tactical install one of these awesome engines into your gun, and we do that really, really quickly for you at a real good price. All right, so now that you know everything there is to know about HPA in your gun, let's actually go show you the awesome performance of an HPA rifle. We're gonna go outside and test this awesome one we nicknamed Gojira with a AEG out in the parking lot here to kind of show you the differences that you get, and then we're gonna show how easy it is to customize and modify the HPA engine on the fly with these little FCUs. So now that we looked at all the different components of why you should buy HPA, we're going to actually look at the differences between a highly built airsoft AEG versus an HPA gun. This is a Rocket Labs build, really awesome, but is it better than HPA? All right, just like everything that we build, these Rocket Lab AEGs are killer. However, there is some disadvantages to an AEG, which you'll see when we shoot the HPA gun. One, it's gonna be a little bit louder than HPA. Number two is there's a lot of parts in here. Even though Mir Tactical, we build some awesome guns, there's always a potential chance that a little bit of the components in here might break over time. But the other thing is too, is rate of fire. This already has a great rate of fire, but once we get to the HPA, you'll see how much full auto rate of fire actually means. Rocket Lab's Gojira build here. This has a Polar Star Jack in it, so one of the lower cost HPA units. So let's go see how she shoots. As you can see, the HPA guns are going to be a little bit smoother. They're going to be a little bit quieter than the AEG. One of the negative things on these, again, which some people don't like, is this hose. Most people run the rig on their back or on their side, so you do have a hose running around. So that's why some people would rather choose a highly built AEG over an HPA gun. However, as you can see, these HPA builds, if you don't mind the hose, are really efficient, really awesome. and have a lot less moving parts, so that they can be a little bit more reliable than a full built AEG. So hopefully after watching this video, you got to see everything there is about HPA in a rifle, both from what it is all the way to how these HPA rifles shoot. The great news is that at Mir Tactical, we have everything you need to HPA pretty much anything in your arsenal, so you can get out to the field and have a spectacular time. Make sure you check out mirtactical.com, like and subscribe to our YouTube, and we'll see you next time.